It's so hard nowadays with all the gangs and rap music.
What about robots?
Oh, they're everywhere.
I don't even know why the scientists make them.
Darren and I have a policy with Old Glory Insurance that covers us in case we're attacked by robots.
An insurance policy with a robot plan?
Mm-hmm.
Well, certainly I'm too old.
Old Glory covers anyone over the age of 50 against robot attack, regardless of current health.
I'm Sam Waterston of the popular TV series Law & Order. As a senior citizen, you're probably aware of the threat robots pose. Robots are everywhere, and they eat old people's medicine for fuel. Well, now there's a company that offers coverage against the unfortunate event of a robot attack, Old Glory Insurance. Old Glory will cover you with no health checkup or age consideration. You need to feel safe. And that's harder and harder to do nowadays because robots may strike at any time. And when they grab you with those metal claws, you can't break free because they're made of metal and robots are strong. Now, for only $4 a month, you can achieve peace of mind in a world full of crime and robots with Old Glory Insurance. So don't cower under your Afghan any longer. Make a choice. Old Glory Insurance. For when the metal ones decide to come for you. And they will.
TBTL.
We've got another week to get back on the horse, you know, and take that horse to the water. And you can ask that horse, you can say, hey, horsey, do you want to have a drink? Or do you want to swim? Yeah, and it's up to that horse to then realise what he wants to do in his life.
I like it. Each sentence so rife with information. Go on, please.
Was my underwear showing when I was climbing down the tree? I wore my Thursdays because my Saturdays had a case of the Mondays, if you know what I mean.
Beep, beep, ribby, ribby.
You are legit crazy. You are losing your marbles.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Well, all right. Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone to a Wednesday edition of TBTL, the show that just might be too beautiful to live.
It's like someone punching your brain, but in a weirdly satisfying way.
My name is Luke Burbank. I'm your host.
Yeah, oh yeah, buddy.
Coming to you from Tropicana Boulevard and Covell Way here in very, very toasty Las Vegas, Nevada.
I feel warm and I'm levitating.
Got out for a little early morning jog here. It's very interesting being in this town when you're not here for recreating, when you're here working, and so you're sort of out of the, I guess you maybe sort of partying industrial complex. So therefore, you might actually wake up at 7 in the morning and try to get a jog in. And I'm not going to say it's not a smug feeling. It's not that to be out running around and seeing people blearily getting back to their hotels and thinking, I made good decisions last night. I DoorDashed some Greek food and researched the UFC until a reasonable hour and then got up early. It's not an experience that I usually have in Las Vegas, but I was having it this morning. So here we are, folks. We've made it to episode 4,496 in a collector series.
Let the fun begin.
I was researching the Ultimate Fighting Championship because that's what I'm here, I guess, reporting on. We're doing a TV story about the UFC fight this weekend and also the UFC's president, Dana White.
The combustion becomes an explosion.
I've been talking about this on the show, how sort of my thoughts about it and how I want to try to sort of handle this whole thing. It's not the typical story that we do for CBS Sunday Morning. And I've arrived at a certain, I don't know what you call it, a certain awareness about everything. I'm feeling actually pretty good going into this interview and going into this week, other than the fact that I do have to watch Power Slap in person, and I really don't know how I'm going to feel about that. Just not as a journalist, but as a person who doesn't know if they want to see someone getting slapped in the face by someone else. I don't know if that's what I want to see, but maybe I can explore that topic and many others with my good friend, the longest-running co-bro of the show, maybe best known for his depictions of the tall ship. Speaking of faces, he has one.
Look at this face. What do you see?
And I would never power slap it. He's Andrew Walsh, and he's joining me right now. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Luke. That's one of the
That's one of the nicest introductions I've ever received. Speaking of faces, he has one.
He
Thank
has
you,
one.
sir. I feel welcome to be here. I appreciate
You know what?
you.
The verified face haver has logged on, everybody.
That's right. And by the way, mere moments ago, as we're recording this, the TBTL billboard design dropped in people's email boxes.
Speaking of faces.
The reviews are in. People seem to be psyched about the billboard.
Oh, good.
Which will be appearing along the side of, what is it? It's Wisconsin Route 21 there, near the 13 juncture, I believe, outside of
Great job on
Friendship.
the early newsletter release this week. I guess, let me ask you this, Andrew. If someone had not subscribed to the TBTL newsletter and they went to do it today, would they probably wouldn't get today's newsletter. They'd probably start with next week's, presumably.
They would
right?
have to start with next week's, which was why it was very important to get your
Yes.
subscription in. But, I mean, we don't have to be totally withholding about this either. I can make it the show pick today or something as
There
well.
you go.
We can let we can
But
open
you
the
should
doors
subscribe to
up.
the newsletter because it's a delight.
Yeah.
Andrew, I was really yesterday as I was reading your draft of the message of the newsletter. I was tickled. You did a really nice job with that.
Thanks. I'm excited. There are photos there. It's not just the design. The original idea was just to unveil the design that we made, but now we actually have a few photos, or a couple of photos, of the billboard as it stands in the wild. That's what's in the newsletter. It's pretty thrilling. Like, is it worth now trying to describe what it looks like, or should we just make it the show pick and let people...
Let's make it the show pick.
Okay, yeah. But it is really thrilling, and again, a testament to whatever the opposite of marketing is. I mean, that's really the amazing thing. The reaction has been, this is amazing and totally useless. And I think that is honestly not a bad iTunes review you could leave for us.
Meanwhile, as I've been here in Las Vegas, and really in LA as well yesterday, but particularly here, because people may get into a legal scrap or two here in Las Vegas, Andrew. I have seen so many billboards that are essentially what our billboard is kind of sort of parodying or sort of, an homage to. I'm seeing them everywhere. I'm seeing lots and lots of billboards. And I'm going, oh, that's the that's the genesis of our billboard idea.
Mm-hmm, yes, it's very it's definitely of a type. By the way, I just got a pop up on my computer. I'm sorry for being distracted, but it was something like, I was like, oh no, what is this pop up? Is somebody trying to reach me in the middle of the show? Is this important? Is this family related? No, it was something called like Avengers of Power. Like, why is my computer trying to sell me stuff? Like, what the heck was that? I just got like
wait a second, the actual computer.
The computer itself, like down in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, keep in mind, I'm a PC guy, and so maybe this argues against PCs, because I got to say, this kind of encroachment, this kind of commercial encroachment into my computer lifestyle, once I've already bought the product, really irritates me and should not be allowed. And I will say, I've been pretty happy with all of my PCs and Microsoft stuff over the years, but like Microsoft, I know this is a huge shift in the conversation. We can move on after I get this off my chest. Microsoft has been doing something lately, like past several years, where they'll say, hey, you need to do an update, right? Critical update. That happens on all computers. Microsoft always prides itself on being one step ahead of the hackers or whatever. So they're always doing security updates. Okay, fine. You got me bought into that system. But now what they do is, along with those updates, it's like, you're qualified for Microsoft 360 or all these other programs I don't want. And you have to say no to the machine like 3 times. Like 3 times. While you're living your life, you just want to use your computer. And then it's like, well, we need to do a shutdown. Okay, do a quick shutdown. And then it's like, are you sure you don't want to buy this? Are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, that's sleazy. We have crossed a line, Microsoft. I don't like it, and I'm not buying Power Avengers 3.
This is much less annoying than that, but I've also got a new computer over here, and every time that you and I dial up this little internet connection to talk to each other, it tries to activate. It wants me to do some kind of a thing with the FaceTime camera.
Oh.
So, you and I, when I'm at my house, the normal studio, we're looking at each other on camera. We're not doing that today because of the internet connectivity. But basically, it activates my camera when we talk to each other so we can see each other. But there's some other thing it wants me to do, which I think involves some kind of AI bullshit. It's like activate FaceTime highlights, or like it wants to like I don't know if it's like record us and then animate us and then sell it to the Chinese. I don't know what the thing is, but what I know is I don't want to do it, whatever it is. And it comes up every time, but here's the thing. There is a small X in the corner of the bubble, so this thing pops up. By the way, it also obscures a significant portion of the screen. And guess what happens when you click on the X to close this prompt out, Andrew?
It opens it up?
It does nothing.
Oh.
There's no getting rid of it. And then I think eventually
Wait,
it
what?
just kind of goes away on its own. You can't X out of it. And I don't want to click on it because I don't want to
you don't want to
start
encourage
down
that
whatever
behavior.
that road
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like this is just happening more and more, and it's definitely making the UX less good.
You know what I just realized? We're the old people in the intro tape we just heard from Saturday Night Live from 1990.
No, we're not. No, we're not, because we both have robot insurance.
That's right. We
both have Old Glory robot
we
insurance.
We already got
Andrew.
the insurance right. We were smart and young, but
We're way ahead of
realized
that because robots steal old people's medicine for their food. We're one of the first shows to call that out. So no, we're actually not them at all, Andrew. We are young and cool.
I will
and
say,
very relevant.
Let me give one put up to technology, because my phone is only about, I don't know, a month old or something. And so it is, the phone that I had prior was about 6 years old. It was before everything became AI and before everything was trying to push you into some sort of an AI, helper that you don't need, and like, I'm not on some sort of soapbox anti-AI stuff. Like, I know some people, it's a real concern for them. And I'm not saying I love it, but like, I'm not going around complaining about AI's impact on the culture. I'm just talking about my user experience. Like, it's such a buzzword now, and it's such a, new toy that they just want to like force you to use in every aspect of your digital life, every aspect. And so my phone is constantly saying, well, why don't you use this AI thing? And I'm always like, 'cause I don't need it. I'm just intelligent. Anyway, I'm not. But there is one thing that I do like about it, which is you can just press a button on the phone and then circle anything on the phone, and it'll automatically look it up on Google, just like visually speaking. So yesterday, I used it for the first time, like in earnest yesterday. We were, those of us who are on the fun-loving criminals sports text chain, we're going back and forth. Of course, the Mariners are facing the Minnesota Twins, and we have Twins fans and Mariners fans on that same chain.
It's a tough week only because if the Mariners do well, which they did yesterday, then it hurts our friend the Stewbot.
Yeah, oh yeah, buddy.
Yep.
And if the Twins do well, it hurts all of us, the rest of us.
Yes, and but everybody's being very gentle. We're all loving. Yes. Nobody wants to hurt the Stewbot, and the Stewbot doesn't want to hurt us. But the Mariners did win yesterday, and somebody gently said, "Go Mariners." Sorry, Stu. And Stu
I believe that was David from the basement.
Yes, very, very sweet. And Stu just sent a photo of a woman sitting at a bar, like kind of a cowboy bar with a cowboy hat.
You know who the woman is, right?
Well, no, I didn't in the moment. She looked familiar to me. This is kind of ironic in TVTL lore, isn't it? Yeah. And because it was clearly from a photo shoot. It's clearly a magazine photo shoot, sort of an arty little photo of a woman. And I was kind of like, is this some sort of Chapel Roan thing, pre-chap? Because she was kind of wearing pink, but a cowboy hat. But I was way off on that. I used this function. I pushed the button, and I just circled the photo as it appeared in my text chain, just circled it, and Google was like, oh, that's what's her name, Nicole Kidman. That's Nicole Kidman and it immediately said that is Nicole Kidman from a photo shoot from like whatever magazine in it was pretty old now.
Somehow,
right?
heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
What was that, from 2018 or 2017? So it was getting kind of old, and I was like, oh, of course, that's my old nemesis, Nicole Kidman, and it was really, really cool, Luke. I just want to go through life circling everything now and saying, what's this?
I like that is there for you now because, again, we've talked about your face blindness, and because when I made that joke, so what happened was the Mariners won a pretty dramatic game. They won in the 9th inning. I was very excited here in my hotel room, holed up with my DoorDashed Greek food. And I wanted to sort of be celebratory on the text chain, but I also didn't want Stewbot to feel sad. Mm-hmm. And so David, my brother, said something like, whatever he said, "Go Mariners," or "Sorry, Stu." And then Stu put that picture in, which was Nicole Kidman. And then I responded, "Somehow heartbreak feels good in a place like this." And my first thought was, I wonder how many people on the text chain are going to clock that that's Nicole Kidman, because it's not classic Nicole Kidman from, let's say, I don't know, Days of Thunder or something where it's like she's got, like you said, she's got a hat on. It's very stylized. So then I was like, are people on this text chain going to just think that I'm just randomly throwing, and also maybe they're not even up on that joke. Maybe there are very few jokes that Stu's not up on.
Stu, definitely. I don't think they're, with the exception of possibly me, but I had already circled and identified it as Nicole Kidman by the time your joke came in. I don't think there's anybody on that chain who was confused about what you were doing there.
Maybe Sam, maybe my brother Sam, only because he is terminally online, I think, in different ways than I am.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if that, I don't think he listens to TVTL on the regular, which has been a bit of an issue in our friendship.
Oh, that's weird. Does he know about the Billboard hunt?
And Brotherhood? No, and don't spoil it for him. He thinks it's in Bono, Utah. But like, probably of the people on that text chain, the only one who probably wouldn't be up on that would be Sam, because again, he's online, but he's not, I don't think he's reading, I don't know where the sort of Nicole Kidman, they had that intro video that was playing in, was it AMC?
Still is, my dude. Still is. I just saw it at the last movie I was at. I'm not joking. They might have tightened it a little bit, but it's still Nicole Kidman walking in that glittery pantsuit and those high heels and sitting down in a theater and saying that
somehow
there it is.
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
It has become it's become such a tradition now. That was started.
Don't people lip dub it? People sing along to it like it's a Rocky Horror Picture Show now?
I had heard that became a thing on TikTok or something. I haven't witnessed that in person. But yeah, I feel like when that eventually fades away, I would love it if AMC... What's it been, Luke? It's the theaters probably started to reopen slowly in 2021, and that was sort of part of that campaign of come back to the theater, everybody. So let's just say that thing is 4 years old now, still running. I bet you they did not expect it to run that long, and I would love it if we get to the 15-year mark and they're just playing it no changes, no edits, just keep rolling it out. I think people really love it now. It's a touchstone.
It's become the new, let's all go to the lobby.
Yes, right. Only more serious.
Yeah, right. Although more heartbreak sort of focused. Yeah. No, but I think you're absolutely right. I'm sure that it was meant to be, it was meant to run for 6 months or a year or something. And then because it became unexpectedly iconic, but not for the reasons they intended.
Yeah.
And again, people making a whole, making half of the trip to the movie theater to watch that Nicole Kidman thing and then, do some kind of silly memification of it. They were like, okay, well, let's keep this going. And then eventually you start with it being sort of unironically funny and then ironically funny and then eventually unironically just part of the experience of going to the movie theater, where it's not even, you're not throwing popcorn at the screen or singing along. It just now tells you, hey, I'm about to watch a movie.
It's really funny when she screams chicken jockey at the end of it.
I was going to say that, but I didn't know if we'd already forgotten that to the sands of time. Speaking of TikTok, I got to tell you, this is a hyper-specific reference that will be not only lost on Sam, but lost on you, maybe even lost on Nicole Kidman, if she's listening, and I assume she is. I had just a weird experience this morning out on my little morning jog, which was there was somebody doing yoga. I was running on Tropicana, and boy, let me tell you, Andrew, in Las Vegas, when you I'm not staying on the Strip this trip. I'm staying a little bit off the Strip, just at a Westin, living that Bonvoy life. And when you are off the Strip by about 2 to 3 blocks, it drops off real quick in terms of, let's just say, the time, energy, and money that are being put into keeping things looking real spick and span. I mean, I don't know if there's another place that I can think of in America where the difference between the place where we're putting all the money and making, faux Eiffel Towers and fountains and opulence that's unbelievable, the drop off between that and 1 block away from that is more stark than Las Vegas.
Yeah, I could see that.
And so it's early in the morning. It's already, by the way, 90 degrees at 7 a.m. So that's good. And I see a guy on this real kind of dingy stroad called Koval. And
Koval. When you
Koval,
said it before,
Miss Koval.
I immediately
Miss
thought
Koval
of Miss Koval
Drive. Yes. And there is a guy, there's a person, and they're bent over in a very odd angle. They're just totally by themselves. And they're on their back, but they're bent, but they're on their back, but with their legs very stiffly kind of they're basically doing a yoga pose. It turns out this is what I realize as I get closer. They're doing at 7 a.m. with nobody around. They are doing an extremely challenging yoga pose just on as these cars are just barreling by, like the last place on earth you would ever do that. And I realize it is a guy that I have seen on TikTok many times who like has green hair and kind of like his whole thing is he sort of like looks like the Joker. Like that's his thing. I'm looking him up right now. He's got like 500,000 followers on TikTok. It has always been unclear to me what this guy's deal is. Like, is he suffering a mental health crisis? It'll be a lot of him shirtless. He's very sinewy, shirtless with his green hair, and he's got sort of like some gold grill in, and he'll always be in like, sometimes he'll be in a fancy car. Sometimes he's in Europe. Sometimes he's in New York City. He's in all these different places. Again, he's usually shirtless and very tan. He's always being kind of sort of a little bizarre, which is why I wondered about his sort of mental health status. But, hundreds and thousands of likes and follows on his videos, and like a kind of a person who's got a pretty big profile on there, who's just doing yoga at 7 a.m. with what appeared to be all of his worldly possessions. A skateboard and like more luggage, like more backpacks and stuff than you normally just carry around, like an amount that's like, this is the stuff that I have in the world right now. Like it was like a star sighting for me, but of the most odd and 2025 variety. I'm like, that's the Joker guy out here right now, appearing to be maybe unhoused, but also doing yoga at 7, not filming it, by the way. This did not appear to be for the gram, for the content. This is just this guy doing this thing out in the middle of nowhere. And I bizarrely kind of know who he is.
That must have been mind-blowing. I'm with you on that.
It was really weird, actually.
There's so much hanging on that as well, including like this guy's sort of lot in life and stuff too. Yeah. But even aside from that, I've often thought about what it would be like if I ran into somebody that I have like kind of a parasocial relationship with online. I don't know if that's maybe painting too strong of a picture of your relationship with this guy, but just people that I follow. Now, my stories on this are going to get less and less relatable as I continue to ditch.
Oh, not as relatable as possibly mentally ill Joker guy?
Well, I just mean that like I think for me it was when I was on Instagram, and now I'm not on Instagram anymore. There are some people who I would still be surprised to see in person because I have like an online relationship with them, like some of the folks on the just kind of the general Mariners community on Blue Sky. Like they're actually, before it was Blue Sky and I think it was Twitter, there was somebody who I followed who was a big Mariners fan who's kind of like known in Mariners fan circles named Brittany. And she's also, I know that she's a mutual friend of some people that I know, but I'd never met her before. Maybe we had gone back and forth on some sort of Mariners related thing online. I had no idea if she knew who I was, but I was in like whatever they call like Edwards Cantina there at T-Mobile Park one time. Edgar's. What did I say? Oh no, what did I say?
Edward.
Oh, what did I say? Can we start the show over? Did I just say Edwards Cantina? Oh my god.
It's a light bat.
That's really embarrassing. But anyway, Edgar's Cantina there, and I ran into her and she has a very distinct look, and I'm like, "Oh, you're Brittany." But then I had nothing after that. She was very nice and said hello, and then I was waiting to meet up.
I think that Brittany has been to a TBTL baseball event.
Brittany
Did you know
Bush
that?
Belay? Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, then
I
maybe she
her.
has more of an awareness of this little world than I thought.
I think, I'm thinking it might have been a TBTL event, or maybe it was just baseball with friends. But I have a specific memory of sitting and talking to that person you're describing about the Mariners and stuff after being at some kind of the game, and then we walked down to somewhere in Pioneer Square. So.
Oh, that's funny. Well, if she had been part of a TBTL thing, even if it was before my time, I wish I had known that, because I just have never like, if you follow me on Blue Sky, there's nothing that indicates I host any podcasts or do it. There's nothing about me at all.
Back to that hyper promotion mode we're always in.
I know, like, and I just, I haven't really considered this much, but if it wasn't a conscious choice I made. I've just never, or I often just don't put that stuff in my bio. But in a certain way, maybe I kind of like that. Like on Blue Sky, I don't know. Well, now I'm just going to get corny, but like, I don't know. Like on Blue Sky, I'm not a guy with a podcast. I'm just a guy who likes the Mariners. I don't know. Like, sure. I never thought about this until this very moment, but maybe I sort of like that dichotomy a little bit. But I definitely, when I ran into her, I remember it being very awkward, because I was just like, I just see you all the time.
Right.
I didn't say that, but I was sort of thinking that. And then it was really awkward because I was waiting for friends and she was standing there by herself. It was honestly one of the most awkward interactions I've ever had, and it was 100% on me.
Saying something.
100% on me. She was very nice. I was just like, oh, hi. Oh, I think we're like Twitter friends or something. She's like, oh, yeah, hey. And then I think I just stopped talking, and she said, well, who are you? Or something like that. And then eventually I just walked 4 feet away from her and stood there by myself. And
I know
she
that
stood
move.
there, and while I waited for my friend to show up, and she waited for her friends. Anyway, that's one
usually
weird
where
example.
I
But
whip out my phone and answer a pretend phone call, which is increasingly becoming a terrible ruse because who's even calling anyone anymore?
yeah, and you're just like, buy, sell. What am I talking
exactly.
about? But anyway, there are just certain people that I feel like I have this digital relationship with that I think it would just like, even if I've never interacted with them before, it would sort of blow me away if I just ran into them IRL or saw them IRL, even if they're not like somebody who's particularly famous or even talented.
Right. And because this guy is in a very, very weird sort of part of my brain, which is I don't follow him. I'm not a fan of his work. I'm more like it would come up in my For You page, and I would just be like, I would spend time considering the existence of this person. Just kind of like, is he okay? Is he making money off this? You know, you'd think that if you have 450,000 followers on TikTok, that seems like you could monetize that, right?
Yeah.
And I'd see him, sometimes he'd be in these very fancy cars, and I'd be like, is that his car, or is he just videotaping with it? Like I said, sometimes he just would be in these different places. He'd be in Times Square. It would seem that people kind of knew who he was. So it's like I'm so far from being a fan of his. But again, it's somebody who, like, when I put it together who this person was and then what they were doing, it was so random.
Yeah,
It was like, this guy.
And you're you're not in a, you know what I mean? You know Vegas, but you're also not like at it on your home turf either.
No,
you know?
in fact, the whole thing was, so right after I passed this guy, then I get closer to a bus stop. This is on Miss Covell, and the street, not the person. That's gross. Get your minds out of the gutter. And I'm there's a bus stop. There's a bus shelter, and there is a person in the bus shelter who looks like she's probably, you know, maybe coming down off of something, or a person who's kind of like very crashed out in the bus shelter, who looks like they might be, you know, unhoused. And then a guy waiting for the bus, and it's a very narrow sidewalk. And so I go behind the bus shelter, which means I'm kind of running on some little like rock, some little like landscaping rock or something. And I look over and realize the guy who was standing at the bus stop is now running next to me and saying stuff to me that I can't hear because I have my headphones in. And I'm just kind of giving him a thumbs up. And he runs for easily 3/4 of a block with me. And I'm like, and he's not in running clothes, Andrew. And he doesn't, he's not like, he doesn't look like he's trying to harm me, but he also doesn't look like he's 100. He was in clothing that made me think this was a person who was at one of the casinos maybe, or somewhere around here, and then like maybe did too much of some kind of a thing and is still on it. But it was weird because he ran with me for like half a block, and I was like, how are we going to get out of this one, Burbs?
And he's like, he's trying to interact with you this whole time too? Or
he's
just
kind of saying stuff. He's kind of, I'm giving him a thumbs up, and he's kind of giving me a thumbs up back, but he's also kind of saying things, but his eyes are kind of wild. But he's also dressed pretty normally. Like, he didn't have all his worldly possessions with him. He kind of looked more like a guy who maybe, again, was on something that he took recreationally, as opposed to like because his life is consumed with this. I'm making a lot of assumptions about the guy, but like, I'm just telling you, in the course of 10 minutes on this run, I see green hair Joker guy doing yoga. Another guy runs with me for half a block. I was like, this town needs an enema.
Luke, I just realized something. Las Vegas is the E line of cities.
You are so, particularly Koval Street. You are so right. You are so right. So very, very right. Like,
you're just like, people are trying to interact with you. You're like, can I ignore this one? I will say that is one of the advantages of mostly wearing my big over the ear headphones is, you know, I'm not saying that I'm curt or unfriendly with everybody who tries to interact with me, out in public in some way, like there are plenty of people, hey, do you have change? Do you, whatever, like, depending on my mood, I will engage to whatever degree I'm comfortable doing in that moment. Right. But sometimes it's just really nice to have those big ass headphones on over your ears and somebody is trying to get your attention, but you have not made eye contact with them yet.
Yes.
And you have just absolutely I'm trying to think of there's a particular term I'm trying to think of here, but you just have
plausible deniability.
That's literally the term I'm looking for. Yes, you just like, as long as you don't make eye contact, you are just fine, because it's like, I don't know, the guy's blasting loud music and those giant ass headphones he's wearing. Also, I'm just realizing the same basic tactic I used when I worked in like a cubicle farm in a public radio station.
I was going to say, you're pulling the exact move I did at KUOW.
Yeah.
When certain employees who I didn't really know how to respond to would enter the workspace, I would put those headphones on. Sometimes maybe I'd open up a program in SAW.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, I can't hear you. I'm listening to a cut and copy from the Board of Education meeting last night.
I had a little moment of that kind of thing yesterday on my flight over here, because remember, I flew Southwest and that was a whole experience, because I probably might fly Southwest once every 4 or 5 years when it is the only way to get from, not even because it's so terrible, but because obviously I'm an Alaska Airlines man, like my father and his father. By the way, speaking of my father, happy birthday, Walt.
Oh, nice. Happy birthday.
Walt B. having a birthday today.
We usually save those for Thursdays, Luke, just so you know.
Yeah. So because I do so much traveling, and particularly I do fly out of Burbank a lot now, or into Burbank. I realized that I was only familiar with one part of the airport. I was familiar with the part of the airport that Alaska Airlines uses. And so, first of all, yesterday I was like, where even am I in this? Like, this is a crazy town. And all it is just a different terminal in Burbank. And then when we landed in Vegas, same thing. It's like, what part of McCarran? Actually, did they change the name? Is it Harry Reid now, I think? It used to be called McCarran.
Right.
What part of Harry Reid is this? And it's like, oh, no, this is Southwest land. It's like being in Shelbyville instead of Springfield.
Yeah, right.
It's like everything is kind of the same but different.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the flight, though, because, sorry about all of the folderol out there.
I only hear, I don't know if the listeners will end up being able to hear it, but I do hear a little bit of sirens or something going on in the background. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, it's a paramedic rescue. It's an ambulance that is steaming down Tropicana on its way to something or other. This is such a mean thing for me to say. I realized something, by the way, yesterday. Sorry, I know I'm all over the map. I realized something the other day when I was walking around on Sunset in Los Angeles trying to get a charger for my iPhone. And there were so many different loud vehicles. And sometimes it was like a motorcycle that was intentionally loud, where I just felt visceral rage. Sometimes it was a car that's like a muscle car, because Sunset's obviously a very busy road, so if you're walking on it, you're sort of like subjected to the noise that the vehicles are making. Sometimes, though, I was getting mad because it was just a car that had a shitty muffler, because the people driving it didn't have the money to fix the muffler, which should not make me as mad as somebody who has intentionally made their vehicle loud, or went out and intentionally bought a loud vehicle, somebody pulling a Belltown Hellcat kind of situation.
Right.
And I realized, I was like, I have a problem, which is it is so visceral, the anger that I feel about loud vehicles, that I can't explain it other than to say it is a much stronger reaction than I should have. And this is how far it extends. And this is why I'm saying I'm a bad person. When I hear an ambulance going down the road, and it's making that noise that just was, which again, barely even picked up on this, probably this microphone, I think that person who they're going to get better be really sick. Like, it's like, that better be life-saving. We better not be going out there for an ingrown toenail. We better not be going out there for anything that is non-life-threatening, because that amount of disruption of my day of 35 seconds is so profound to me. Like, it's so visceral that I then start getting into deciding whether or not I think the person who is getting the medical attention needed to call the ambulance or not. And that is, I understand, a truly unhinged way to analyze the world.
You have a You do have an oversized reaction to,
I know.
especially
I don't like
sound,
it.
though, right? Do you think that
Only sound?
Only sound, because like some people will say senses in general. And there's a term for that, right? When you're especially sensitive to all kinds of sensory input. But it does seem specifically to sound to you. And I'm not trying to say that it's like so outsized that it's uncomfortable being with you because you're going to fly off the handle when a mouse scurries by or something like that. Although I'm kind of enjoying that picture in my mind too. But like,
why is Stuart Little's motorcycle so loud?
Wait, the mouse or the Ralph, the mouse in the motorcycle.
Oh, that's the guy.
But anyway, yeah, I do remember, and this is a very extreme example, and this was loud to anybody's ears, and this was shockingly loud. But that time we were in your parking garage when you lived in Portland, and we were getting ready to go on the road for a TBTL-a-thon, and we're in the garage packing up or something, and then there's this motorcycle with like the loudest what do you call a non-muffled tailpipe. Yeah. It was so loud, screaming up and down this tiny little street. I don't know if they were trying to sell the motorcycle, somebody was taking on a test ride, but then it was echoing in the parking garage because it was an open parking garage. It was happening right below, like 3 stories below, and it was so unbelievably loud. I honestly was not sure if we were going to get you out of there. It seemed like a war movie, sort of. You just looked like you were becoming somebody else.
And I think we both kind of went and looked out from the parking garage to just try to understand how that noise could be that loud.
Yes, I remember looking down at that. And we got eyes on it eventually, and they just kept on like ripping it up and down this one street.
Yeah, but they had definitely done some kind of after-marketing thing. So that it was, I mean, that was without a doubt the loudest motorcycle I've ever heard in my life. Like, I can't even really describe it properly. But yeah, I admit freely that there's something going on with me. I've read, that what isn't supposedly an undiagnosed, maybe ADHD response. I don't know if that's even accurate or not, but I've definitely that's one thing I've read about it. Like there is something because, and again, I'm glad I don't have this power, but when someone rips by me on a super loud motorcycle and I get the feeling that it gives me, like particularly if I'm walking on the street, it's one thing if I'm in my car, the windows are up, whatever. But like maybe it also has to do with a certain feeling of vulnerability. I'm walking on a busy road and I'm thinking about one thing and all of a sudden this very loud, what feels to me almost like a violent noise happens. If I could click my fingers and cause that motorcycle to crash right then and there, I would. Like that's the feeling I have in my head, which I am not able to act on, thankfully, and hopefully I wouldn't act on it if I was given that doomsday device. But like it is really like something inside me shifts into an extreme response that I totally admit is way out of hand. So anyway, back to...
Well, I just want to say that's why I would say to all the witches and warlocks out there, if you ever have the opportunity to give Luke superpowers of some sort, like don't do it. He can't control. He's already shown you that he can't control his powers. Like, let's not give him these powers.
Give me the one where I know what number is going to come up in roulette, and could you get that to me by this afternoon?
Okay, gotcha.
That could come in that could get me out of a couple of jams here in old Lost Wages, Nevada.
I love it when you say that.
But so the flight that I took from Burbank to Las Vegas was on Southwest, which I already said I rarely do, and because part of it is also I don't really know my way around the Southwest experience, which is to say, it's kind of just like it's not a free for all. I mean, your ticket has a group assignment, and luckily I was in actually I was in Group A, so I didn't have my pick of any seat, but I was in the first maybe 20 people that got on the plane. But me, I'm such a super maximizer. I was like in my head thinking like, okay, what are the 20 best seats on the airplane? Because I'm going to get onto this airplane. And you can sit wherever you want on Southwest if people don't know that. Once you're on the plane, any seat that's not taken, you can just go sit in it. There's no first class.
Still the deal. I wasn't sure. I thought that they had changed that up. I thought I'd heard stories about classic, Southwest practices are going out the window, and they're basically going to be like every other, to their perspective, pain in the ass flight. I don't want a Southwest style flight, but I thought they had pulled that back and just.
I think some of that had to do with charging for luggage,
but not choosing seats, huh? It's still kind of not.
Well,
a free
this one
for
I was
all,
on,
but...
you didn't. No, it was still a free for all. Although, like I said, I was in Group A, which I think I paid a little. I mean, I didn't, but I think CBS paid a little more money for me to be in Group A. But then I'm thinking as I'm getting onto the flight, I'm like, okay, I'm going to step onto this airplane and I immediately need to make a decision about what the premium seat is that I'm looking for. And I'm like, is it the exit? Is it one of the exit rows? If those aren't taken, I knew the front row of the plane, like the row 1 or whatever, which again, it's just coach, but it's just at the front. I knew that was going to be taken. I was like, is it a window? Is it an aisle? I became really obsessed with trying to make sure that the second I stepped on the plane, I immediately zeroed in on the most premium seat that was still left.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of what happened was when I got on, I realized that this kind of older couple that I had been sitting near in the waiting area, had taken the aisle and the middle seat of the very front row. And now normally, the other thing I was thinking was, if I go to the back of the plane, because I don't think it was a totally full flight, I was like, if I go to the back of the plane, maybe then no one will sit by me. That was another thought. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask these folks if it's okay if I sit in that window seat. And sure enough, they said sure, no problem. And so that's where I sat. So I was actually in the very front row of the plane, which is an advantageous place, but I was in a row that was kind of packed. And then I kept putting my headphones in because I was listening to music and some other things. And the very nice lady who was in the middle seat kept talking to me, and I kept taking the AirPod out and going, And then, yeah, pretty warm over there in Vegas. Yeah, sure. Okay. And then I put the AirPod back in, and then like a minute would go by. And then it'd be like, oh, I noticed that this person is talking to me again, that I'm taking the AirPod out, and then we're chatting. And then I'm like, yeah. And then I'm putting the AirPod back in. That happened for, a good 45 minutes, and then we landed.
I'm not saying that it is 100% effective, but I'm telling you, over-the-ear headphones are going to cut down on that. It's just going to tell the world. And you could also just really more actively pretend like you didn't hear the last interruption, and you just have, again, plausible deniability, that phrase that was right on the tip of my tongue last time I tried to use this example. But I mean,
somehow plausible deniability feels better in a place like this.
Maybe that's a show title. Where's the bell? But yeah, I do think that I know there are so many things against traveling with over-the-ear headphones. Like, they're just not as convenient, right? And you got to keep them around your neck if they're not on your ears. Like, I understand that, but God, that is one huge benefit. You just put those things on, you put it on noise canceling, which has gotten a lot better. You don't even have to really pretend that much.
Now, the other thing that happened on the flight was, as we're starting to land, so we're now like, we're midway into our final descent, the husband stands up. So we're landing in, 3 minutes, Andrew. Like, we're starting to like kind of cruise down over these sort of outer rings of Las Vegas. And the husband stands up and then goes for the bathroom, and now is like in the bathroom. And I'm like getting so stressed out because I'm like, legally, can they land the plane if somebody's in the bathroom? Like, is that against the rules? Like, are we going to have to pull up and do another loop or something? Like, what are the FAA implications? I've never seen a person using the bathroom this close to when the plane is landing.
And he broke the rules, right? There was already the announcement. Everybody must.
Oh, the announcements had been minutes before. But I mean, there's a flight attendant sitting right there. And I think what must have happened was he really had to go, and he got up and he just said to the flight attendant, I don't know what he said, but it was out of my field of vision, but I think he must have said, I really have to go. And the flight attendant probably said, be really quick.
Yeah, like, what are you going to do? Like, weren't you and I talking about a scenario recently where you just got to tell somebody, like, listen, right now this is my problem, let's not make it our problem. Like, I need to use that bathroom, otherwise this is going to be all of our problems.
So yeah, I'm guessing they let him in, but then it's like, I'm now like, oh my God, this is like, also, we were banking. You know what I mean? The plane was banking. Yeah. There's a point at which, I didn't even think about this, but like, part of why they tell you to sit down and buckle up and everything is because now the pilots know that, like, when you're in the middle of a typical airline flight, you're just kind of cruising along. It's pretty stable. But there is a point when they're getting ready to land where they start like turning a lot. They start banking, like literally one side of the plane dips way down and one side of the plane goes way up because we're like doing a right-hand turn or whatever you call it in aeronautics. And I'm like, this guy's in the bathroom right now.
Yeah, just tumbling around.
Like it's in like one of those like upside down houses that you would go to in like Four Corners, Arizona or something, where it's like you could stand in 4 different states. And also there's this like house that you walk into it and the floor is the ceiling and all of that.
Yeah,
like
defies gravity.
Some tourist shit. Like I was like, this guy. So then I was really getting kind of anxious for him and for our flight and whatever. And then like seriously 30 seconds before we touch down, he like jumps back into his seat, buckles his seatbelt, and then this was the piece de resistance.
Covered in filth. Just covered in filth.
Just dripping toilet water. There's just the wet toilet paper behind his ear. No, and he just sits down, and I'm thinking, boy, that was, it was a near miss for all of us, sir. I've logged a lot of miles in these skies.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. And then he just like calmly reaches over to the there's like a little, what do you call it? Like a sleeve that, that's where the safety instructions are and things like that. I don't think there's a menu on Southwest. I don't think listen, we are customers of Action. Lies do not become us. I don't think Southwest is trying to do food up there. But he just calmly reaches for that little sleeve or whatever, and then pulls out his Sudoku, Andrew, which is, I'd say maybe 200 pages that he's printed out from the internet.
Oh, interesting.
I don't mean a book of Sudoku.
Yeah.
I mean loose leaf.
Is there a binder clip involved?
There's a
at
clip.
least? Okay,
there is a binder clip on his loose leaf Sudoku, and he just goes right back to doing it.
Love it. Love it.
I was like, that's a flex. And I thought, man, that guy must have had to go really bad.
He's like the James Bond of pooping on planes.
Shaken, not stirred.
Yeah, he was shaken.
Yeah, right.
Hello and welcome to Top Story.
Well, here I am in Las Vegas, Andrew, to do this story about Dana White and about Ultimate Fighting Championship. Do you want to know a fun fact about the UFC in the early days when it was purchased by the ownership group that was these two rich friends who were high school friends with this guy Dana White, who I'm talking to? The UFC was such a failure at that point, they didn't even own UFC.com. That was owned by User Friendly Computers.
Oh, of course. Wait, what UFC are you talking about?
And then they tried to do like UFC.tv because they didn't have enough money to buy UFC.com from userfriendlycomputers.com. And yeah, the thing was really kind of a failure from a sort of, profitability standpoint, and was, these rich guys were burning through their money. They'd like ended up sinking like $40 million into it. And this guy, Dana White, had no money. He was their friend who was like, I'll run it. So he was putting sweat equity into it. Can you imagine being these two brothers? It's like $40 million in. And Dana keeps telling us this is going to work. Mm-hmm. But the thing that turned it around for them was they pitched a reality show about the UFC. And they got Spike TV to agree to air it if they paid for it, which was another $10 million. So they had to self-fund a reality show and then put it on Spike TV. And then that took off like a rocket ship and then literally saved this entire organization.
Wait, or does history remember this show? Is this like well known? Like,
I do remember. I didn't ever watch it, but I remembered it being. I think they got lucky that this was still at a time when. Well, that's not true. I think reality TV still bizarrely seems kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, recession-proof. No, it's like it's hard to get people to watch anything except somehow Bravo is just printing money with like the Real Housewives and these reality shows, Vanderpump Rules and the like. So, but what I was going to say is this was back in the day when there was a little bit less fracturing of the media. And so, if you had a hit reality show on Spike TV, people were talking about it. I remember knowing that it was a thing. But see, the thing is, because of how I grew up, I always sort of knew about the UFC because Peter Williams and I used to rent these videotapes from Blockbuster that were the original UFC fights, which were like hyper violent. And the whole sales pitch was, well, this is like, you can do anything to the other person. You can gouge them in the eye. You can kick them in their private parts. There's just no rules. There's no gloves. When you're like a 14-year-old kid or something, I guess if you're, so I've got a screw loose like I did, you're like, ooh, that sounds interesting. I mean, can't believe they're even allowed to do that. So I was always sort of aware
Phases
of it.
of Death again. No,
I was
Luke,
afraid of that one.
That
one I never watched.
Yeah,
I heard about that when I worked at Dick's Drive-In. I was like, that sounds scary to me.
That was one of those things where at some point as an adult, I remembered it because I'd never seen that either. It's just something I heard of. I'm like, wait a second, was that a real thing? Like I had to at one point verify that this wasn't just some bullshit that the kids made up in 1988.
I've seen other podcasts, like clips of other podcasts, Andrew, with people of our age debating this exact question.
Really?
Not was it
actually
real,
exist?
but were the people in it? Because the thing was, this was supposedly like a video that was showing people dying in different kind of extreme ways, and the question was, is it real or made up? And I think that the final verdict was there is some real stuff in there and then some stage stuff or whatever. But all that is to say, that was way too extreme for me. But the UFC, seeing Keith Hackney punch Joe Son repeatedly in his balls, that was very much the speed I was looking for. And so I was always kind of aware of the UFC, and I didn't realize that it had basically almost completely failed until this reality show, which then told a bunch of people who didn't know about it that it was on and that it was a thing. And then from there, their fortunes kind of really took a turn in the right direction. Now, I've been stressed about this story because this guy, Dana White, who's the president and CEO of it, is a very, very, very tight friends with Donald Trump. He's very politically active now, I think, has spoken at the RNC the last couple of times, and has been, was caught on tape in a domestic violence incident with his wife. There's just like a lot of stuff about this guy that is way more complicated than, let's say, I don't know, who's a recent profile that I've done that's uncontroversial. I don't know, like
Mayonnaise Lady?
Maybe Mayonnaise Lady. Mayonnaise Lady, very low controversy.
Yeah. Now, I know that's not really a profile, but
you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, this kind of stories that this TV show that I work for does, usually we're not, like, in fact, what I found out about this was supposed to be a 60 Minutes piece. And through some series of things I don't really understand, it ended up getting instead assigned to our show and then somehow assigned to me. But it definitely feels like if I worked for 60 Minutes, I could do a certain kind of story.
Yeah.
First of all, you get like 12 minutes to get a lot of time to do the story. And you go in with this. I mean, that's the show that does these kind of much more hard hitting, much more, you might say, adversarial, or at least very much holding the people we're interviewing accountable for things, And that's not the show that I work on. So I'm like, how is this going to work? So I did have a conversation with my boss, like the very boss of the whole show, who's kind of like, it's sort of like getting audience with The Wizard of Oz. Like, everyone talks about this person because they have ultimate decision-making power, but they're also, because they're the boss of the show and they are involved in everything, they're always busy. It's always hard to get 5 minutes with them. And so anyway, I got 5 minutes with them, and just to say, hey, these are the things that I really want to make sure we're all on the same page with about this story, et cetera. But also I realized something being here, and this is kind of alleviating some of my concern, is I actually think the story is really not about Dana White. I think the story is really about the culture of the UFC and the fact that they're taking over this town for this weekend, as they often do. Thousands, if not, hundreds of thousands of people are flocking to Las Vegas to watch basically sanctioned violence. And that's what we're going to report on. It will involve talking to the person who's the president and CEO of it. But I think I was thinking of it wrong. I was thinking of it as like a profile of this guy, and it's not a profile of this guy. It's a story about what part of the culture UFC exists in, and the quote unquote manosphere, and the fact that this is a thing that has a huge amount of sort of influence on a specific kind of person in this country. And that's the story. And it involves talking to the person who's in charge of it, but it's not like, and there was one thing that was at one point, the question was like, are we going to get B-roll of me gambling with him? And I was like, I don't think that's a particularly journalistic look, even though I do love gambling. Then also it was mentioned that the minimum buy-in at this room in the Fontainebleau Hotel where he gambles is $300,000 for a hand. And I thought, I don't think Larry Alardo's going to approve that. So we moved that one off of the list.
So wait, wasn't it on yesterday's show that you said you were? Are you still going to play some game with him? Was it Baccarat?
I don't think I'm playing a game with him. I think we're filming him.
I think that's a really good choice. And I didn't want to. I wasn't going to bring that up, but I was sort of in the back of my head, like, but you still are going to, because I know a lot of the pieces that you do that are on like less controversial topics, like you say, you get involved in some way, and
we do a thing.
You do a thing. But in this case, like, I don't know, man. I just didn't want to see you paling around. Like, I didn't want to see you Jimmy Falloning this guy, or
you wanted to see a minimum of hair tussling.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And that kind of like just normalization of just like, hey, we're hanging out. I don't know. And again, so it's your thing. I'm I don't want to. I don't want to put ideas in your head or whatever, but for whatever it's worth, I'm like, I think that's a good decision on your part.
I think it's much better. It has my anxiety level much lower now going into this, because it's like, I don't think The problem with doing a profile on our show is it's very hard for it to not become essentially the glorification of the person and the subject of the profile. And I just don't think that's really the story that we should be doing here. I think we should be doing a really accurate, fact-based report on a thing that's going on, and then also a person who's kind of at the center of it, but who comes with a lot of really kind of questionable behaviors and things, So yeah, the idea of us also, again, legitimately this room that this this private game or whatever that they play baccarat in, it literally is like $300,000 a hand. So I don't know what the thought ever was about me playing it. I don't know. Was CBS going to front that money? That was not going to happen anyway. So, and I'm glad it's not happening. I think it's a better look for us as a show and for me and everything. So I guess, I don't know. I don't have a power out to that other than to say, I'm feeling a little less anxious about things now, kind of reframing it in my mind and talking to the producers and just kind of being like very over communicative about what the sort of plan is. I'm also bringing questions. I never do that. I have never sweated over a list of questions like I have for this interview that I'm doing in like an hour. Like, it's a whole thing, like where we're starting, and then where we're kind of like turning up the temperature a little bit with the questions being more direct, and then kind of where, how do we take the pressure off a little bit so that we keep the person engaged in the interviews, so they're not shutting down. It's a whole dance that I'm not usually doing when I'm talking about mayonnaise.
Well, are you going to ask him how he feels about whether or not you need eggs in mayonnaise for it to be officially called mayonnaise? Can a vegan mayonnaise exist?
At the very end, if I feel like we've had a rapport.
Yeah, then you can,
because I can't ask
lay that
out
of. Yeah, no, don't start with that out of the gate. No,
because if that goes wrong, it's like interview over.
Can I just... This is nothing but me complimenting you, but there was a
Finally.
show. There was a show you've waited 18 years for. There was a show title that lives in my head from about a month ago that I still think is maybe one of the best show titles. I mean, of all time, I don't know. And I know that it was your joke during the show. Could God make a pizza so healthy even he wouldn't eat it? Is one of my favorite jokes.
That's our new. This is the second reference in like 2 or 3 days. That's our new "Is bowling a sport?"
Yes,
that's right. when you're just trying to get the phones going on a call-in show. That's the question you throw out there. That's the puzzler.
So that doesn't really advance the conversation we're having now. It just popped into my head, and I'm having one of those days.
This is the other thing, though, and I'm not trying to be dramatic about this. Like, one of the things that we're scheduled to go film is this. I guess we'll call it a sport called Power Slap, which the UFC owns, and which they're promoting, and in which they had a TV deal. It was on like TBS or something. Here's what's kind of interesting about, and Power Slap is exactly what it sounds like. It's two people standing across a small little table from each other, and one person slaps the other person, and then the other person gets 60 seconds to recuperate and then slap the other person, and then somebody either gets knocked out or somehow the judges judge who slapped better based on some criteria. It is, I'm not an overly, I don't think I'm an overly sensitive person about stuff like this. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think boxing is a very complicated thing, but I've certainly watched plenty of boxing in my life, and I've found a lot of it to be honest with you, quite entertaining and intriguing. I'm not somebody who I think is quick to say this should be an illegal thing for two consenting adults to be a part of. But just the sort of raw aggression of this, and the fact that there just appears to be zero strategy. I don't know why strategy matters to me, but like even with MMA or with the UFC, people would say, well, the problem with Ultimate Fighting is it's so violent. And yes, it is sometimes. It is also incredibly strategic. There's a ton of grappling and jujitsu that goes into it, and the other person does something, and then you make a decision based on that, and then they do something. There's this whole series of decisions that you're constantly making. It is, I think, very strategic, which for some reason in my mind gives it a little bit more legitimacy. Mm-hmm. But like, I actually don't know if I want to sit in a room. I don't know what my physical and my kind of emotional reaction will be to sitting in a room and seeing somebody slap somebody else in the face as hard as they can. Am I just being a chicken about that? Like, that's like, I'm surprised that I'm actually as kind of I'm as I don't know, weirded out by the concept as I am.
I want to respond to that, but first I am going to tell you why I think a friend of mine is somewhat responsible for this phenomenon that you're going to be watching of slap fighting, or this is called power slap, right? Is that what it's officially called? Yeah. Now, maybe I'm drawing too many lines here that don't actually exist. But when I was in college, my buddy John, who's a good friend of mine, he was always talking about his buddy Carter that he went to high school with. My friend John is a musician and an artist, and his friend Carter was a very creative guy. And they went to high school together on the east side of Cleveland, and they collaborated on a whole bunch of stuff. He was always talking about Carter. And then one day he told me that Carter got a TV show because we knew that Carter had moved to Hollywood or something. I'd never met Carter before. It turns out Carter, and I don't know his last name, but Carter is one of the two guys who started How I Met Your Mother. And John, before that all happened, so this is at this point, How I Met Your Mother isn't even a those words mean nothing to me. But John used to tell me how him and Carter invented this thing in high school called, or their gang of friends or whatever, called slap fighting, where you would just slap each other. And then that became, I guess, a recurring bit on How I Met Your Mother. I remember John telling me, he's like, because John told me about the slap fighting before it was a TV thing. And then he told me Carter's putting slap fighting in the TV show. In fact, John apparently, I literally have never seen an episode of How I Met Your Mother, but apparently John's paintings appear in the background of some scenes because he would paint them and send them to Carter, and Carter would put them in there. But, so it went from him telling me about this game about the slap fighting that he invented with his friends in high school, and then his friend Carter starts a TV show, and then slap fighting apparently becomes a whole thing in that TV show. And now this is where you really maybe would argue that you can't draw a line here, but was there a seed of an idea from the people who decided to make this power slapping thing from How I Met Your Mother's slap fighting?
That would be the craziest origin story.
It would be. I just want to insert myself in this in some way.
Give me one more thing to talk to Dana White about. I'll ask him where he got the idea, or how, and was it, did it involve Jason Segel and or I forget the name of the other guy.
But I do think that show, I think within that show, and I don't think that you were a huge consumer of that show, right? I do think that it became kind of
people
a big
love that
hallmark.
show.
Yeah, and I think it became like a big hallmark of the show, and this idea of just like slapping each other. But having said that, no, I'm totally with you on like the cringe of that. Like, but of course I'm not even into those physical fighting sports anyway. You know that we have friends who are really, really into it and would have like people over for pay-per-view events or whatever. And at a certain point I stopped going, and it wasn't like I always enjoyed it because like before I watched football on any kind of regular basis, I would love getting together with you guys and watching football games, and then I would learn more about it. And I just always find pleasure in hanging out with people who know a lot about something, even from a fan's perspective, and they want to kind of bring you into that world. And so, I loved that with football, and for a while I was doing that with like the physical, the UFC stuff or
fighting
sports. And then eventually I was just like, you know what? Like I physically don't like what's happening on the screen. And it wasn't like a moral thing. It's not like me judging and being like, I can't believe you guys buy into this. It's not a moral judgment. I just gave it a shot, and it occurred to me, I don't like seeing flesh hit flesh like that. I don't like seeing people tied up in pretzels on the ground or trying to hurt each other. Like, it doesn't bring me any good feeling. It just makes me feel kind of bad. And
the way somebody catching a touchdown would bring you a good feeling, potentially.
Exactly. And the way somebody saying it takes all of us on the back of their helmet, like, it just really speaks to me, right?
The way that could probably solve, the way that it could eraseism.
Exactly. I mean, just the strong stance, the moral composition that you need to put "it takes all of us" on the back of a helmet. Like, I just applaud that.
The moral
kind of
arc
bravery.
of the NFL is long, but it bends towards making more money.
Exactly. No, but I mean, obviously, of course, football has tons of its own issues. So again, not a moral thing. But I was just like, oh God, no! I literally just don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. This is not entertaining to me. And honestly, the idea of two people hitting each other in the face as hard as they can, whether it's Neil Patrick Harris or some guy named Butch at the UFC, like, I am not
Every guy
interested.
in Power Slap is named Butch, by the way.
That's what I thought. I'm having a hard time riffing today.
No, that's one of the strangest things about the sport.
I don't care
literally.
if it's somebody named Nicole Kidman in the UFC.
Well, that's like I think on like Friday night or something. So I guess I'll have some kind of maybe a report on Monday. I'll be back home, and I can talk about how it went on Friday night. But anyway, so all right. Well, speaking of this interview, I gotta go do it. So we should probably wrap things up here on this Wednesday edition of the show. But I have some news for everyone. We are going to be back here tomorrow, as we often are on Thursdays. I mean, as we always are on Thursdays, with more Imaginary Radio for you. So if you could, please join us for that. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Everybody out there, have a great rest of your Wednesday. Go Mariners and Twins. Is that possible? Can they just have a tie game today? Can they play to a stalemate?
How about the Mariners win, but they do it in a very gentle, loving way?
Yes. How about they cuddle the Twins to death? Not to death, to loss.
Is this a 4-game series or just a 3-game series?
I think it's a 4-game series, because what they said yesterday was in winning the first 2 games, the Mariners have ensured at the worst a split.
Okay, interesting. All right.
That's a good feeling. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. In the meantime, please remember, no mountain too tall.
And good luck to all.
Power out.
All righty. I think your Riverside stopped recording at some point, but
yeah,
I just
noticed
let
that.
it go.